Hello, my name's Karen Edwards and I'm a storyteller who comes from Carnlough in the Glens of Antrim. Right at the moment I'm out on Oe Island, isolating from the coronavirus, and it's a beautiful place where there's no electricity and perfect for working on stories and recording stories. The story I'm going to tell you now is about a farmer who lived in Fermanagh. His name was Willy. Now, Willy was a sort of a small scale farmer. He had a couple of ducks, a couple of geese, not really crops, a few cows. He kept everything fairly simple, but times were hard. It was during the war, and that brought its own hardship. As well as that, Willy wasn't terribly well educated. He could just about write his own name, and he definitely couldn't read very well. There was also an organisation called the Milk Marketing Board, who many of you will be familiar with. Now, if they didn't want to buy your produce, they would send out a letter. And at the bottom of that letter would be a series of tick boxes. And the reason for why they weren't going to buy your milk or your butter would be evidenced in whichever box was ticked. So one of these letters had arrived on the mat, on Willy's mat, and he couldn't read it. So he brought it out into the lane to his neighbour Maud Maneely, who gave me this story. Here, Maud, could you give us a hand to read this letter? Aye, surely, Willy, show us it here. Oh, Willy, they're not going to buy your milk. It says here there's a foreign body in it. A foreign body? How in under God could there be a foreign body in my milk? And Maud had to explain to Willy that a foreign body could be the smallest speck of dirt, the tiniest hair, that would be enough to put the Milk Marketing Board off. Well, Willy wasn't exactly pleased, but he was at least content to know the reason why. But he had a good sense of humour. The next day, one of the neighbours, "Hey, Willy, have you any idea where the Germans are today?" No, I've no idea where they are today, but there was one of them in my milk churn yesterday. Well, the neighbours decided that the best thing that they could do for Willy to make his life easier was to get him married. Because as it was, Willy had to go out, do all his chores on the farm all day, and when he came in, he had to make his own dinner. So to that end, the neighbours got him all dressed up, the finest tweed suit. They got his hair combed, they got his face scrubbed, shoes shone, tie on him, and off they took him to the dance in Temple. Willy walked into the dance floor, and of course, as it was in those days, all the men were along one side of the wall, all the women were on the other wall, and never the twain shall meet till near the end of the night. But Willy's eyes lit on a wee girl from Belfast. Oh, he was really taken with her. The neighbours, they were raging. "Willy, she not do. You need a big strong lot of a country lass that can help you about the farm. She's too thin." But Willy was not being deterred in the slightest. He asked her to dance. They danced all night. He walked her home, and before too long they were walking out together. And not long after that, the subject of matrimony arose. Now, the two ideas of a wedding were very different. Willy thought you could just go along, tie the knot. It would take about 10 minutes and everything would be over. You'd be back on the farm doing your chores in no time. The girl from Belfast had a very different idea. What she was interested in was, would there be a good do? And I mean a really good do. Hotel the works, no expense spared. She was also interested to know, would there be a honeymoon? Now, Willy knew about the full moon, and he knew about the harvest moon, and he'd even heard tell of the new moon, but he'd never heard of this honeymoon. And he thought, oh, I wonder what it is, but I'm not going to let it worry me. I'll just wait and see, and I'm sure it'll sort itself out. And then one day he was returning from the market in Enniskillen, and there up in the sky was a beautiful big orange disc of a moon. I know what it is. It's just that fancy talk of those Belfast ones. She means the harvest moon. We can sort that. So the wedding was arranged. Everything was organised. The best man was booked. The bridesmaids were sorted. The day of the wedding dawned, and the best man called at the farm for Willy. "Hey, Willy! Willy, are you there?" No sign of Willy. "Willy, where are you?" He went out to the bar. No sign of Willy there. Down to the bottom field. Not a trace of him could he find. He went back up to the house, and he was just about to give up and go on when he heard a sort of a thistle down in the bottom room. He went down. There was Willie, under the bed. Will you get out here now? You're going to marry that wee girl from Belfast. You're not going to let her down. And he got Willie trailed out and dressed and took him off to the wedding, and everything went according to plan. The bride was delighted. The hotel was superb. The dinner was to die for. The day progressed. Willie thought he'd had easier days digging turf in the bog than this wedding malarkey. He couldn't wait to get home. And when the end of the reception came, they set off. The bride was a wee bit disappointed that there was no talk of the honeymoon, but she thought, well, I've had a good day. I'll not rock the boat. Sure, maybe it'll come up at some later stage. So off the pair of them went. And of course, when they got back to the farm, Willie had to go out and do all his chores. There was nothing else for it. And by the time they were done, it was time for bed. Up the pair of them went up the stairs. He in one side of the bed, she in the other. And he was so tired. He'd never been as tired in his life. And he was just dozing off to sleep when the next thing, dump in the ribs. Willie, I'm cold. Oh, hold on a wee minute, Mary. I have a spare blanket in the dresser. I'll get it for you. And he got it and he tucked it in under her feet, patted her down, back in, round, into the bed for the second time. Was just dozing off again when, Willie, I'm still cold. Oh, now hold on a minute. And he was very good. He didn't let his impatience show one dot. Down the stairs he went. He boiled the kettle, made a hot water bottle, brought it back up the stairs, tucked it in under her feet, tucked the blanket in round, and back into his own side of the bed for the third time. Oh, he was shattered. He was in that twilight zone, just dozing off between sleep and wakefulness, and the next thing, Willie, I'm still freezing. And when I was cold at home, my mummy used to give me a hug. Oh, Mary, I don't mind getting you a spare blanket from the dresser, and I don't mind getting you a hot water bottle, but I'm not going to Belfast tonight for your mother. And that's my story of Willie the farmer. Thank you very much.